Hello everybody, nice to have you here. Today we'll proceed our discussions about the possible use case of Adobe Builder, because some time ago I got interesting question which is quite basic by its structure, but very interesting from the point of view that it's so basic. Because the use case we will talk about is very common, it's used on every project, but it's still not always obvious the best way to implement it, because there's so many ways to implement it that you need to choose one. And I want to just show how it's possible to implement it with Adobe Builder. And the use case that we will talk today about will be, I believe in a common practice for enterprise clients to transfer Magento customer data and sales order into the SAP system, and vice versa. Could you please create a video demonstrating this process? Additionally, I'm interested in learning how to perform custom API mapping. So, totally right that it's very common that honestly on every project I'm working, we need to export the order and customer data out of Magento. And then we also need to import some other data, which can be the customer external ID, some customer metadata from external systems, and so on. And so the APIs are different, you always need to map them together, so you need to have some transformations in a way. And so creating the modules, which is usually the Magento module. And what I want to show the way how it's nicely can be done with Adobe Builder, because it's one of the most used cases when we're thinking about the Adobe Builder world. So let me have a look. I prepared some nice diagram for you here. So we have here on the left side, we have Adobe Commerce System. And on the right side, we have our customer systems, which can be CRM, SAP, order management, and so on. And then we need to connect them between each other. Our Adobe Commerce System has two APIs available, which is GraphQL and REST. Not talking about SOAP here, sorry. And if you watch one of my previous video, I talked about Adobe API events. So there is a default native way to export events out of Adobe Commerce System to the Adobe Builder without any development, more or less. And then when this usually happening, so let's say we will be talking about new order use case. When the new order is placed, then the webhook being sent to Adobe App Builder in this case. It can be sent directly to the target system, but as you understand, the APIs will not match, or the data will not match. So you would need to develop or something on the target system, or your client need to develop it, which not everybody want to do, or you need to do it yourself. So you send in a request to the Builder application in this case, and there you build in the JavaScript function that's doing the data transformation from your API to customer API. And then after it's done, you send it to the customer system. Sounds quite easy. Then in another way, the similar way, so for example, you need to update data from external system to Magento. For that, you have multiple options. So one of the options is that your customer system work in the same way as we just discussed before. So it's pushing data forward a Builder application, and then a Builder doing the transformation in this case, and then doing data push to Magento native APIs. That's one of the use cases I met. The another one is that customer just telling you, hey, I have an API. Here it is, just use the API. It's so easy. What can be easier? And for this, you can build a Builder application which is periodically pulling data from external system. So you cannot rely here anymore like on updates. So it's not that the external system send you the webhooks every time something's been changed, which is also possible, and it would be great. If not, you just pulling the data out of there, you're doing the transformation, and then you're pushing them to Magento. At this point, by the way, of pulling and transform the data, we always build in the hash validation mechanism, which is technically comparing the data so it's pulling the data, creating the mesh out, or it's pulling the data, creating the hash out of them and saving it in the key value storage. And then on the next update, if you pull in the data, you compare in the hashes, and if they match, you're not doing anything. So you can save a lot of resources with this because data were not changed. But if they're not matching, means data been changed, and then you start in the usual synchronization process. And that's simple as it is. I mean, there's nothing else, honestly, you need on this schema. It's quite easy to build. It's very easy to maintain. It's the single point, let's say here or here, and you don't need to build any Adobe Commerce extensions. What you can add here, if you want to somehow work with on APIs and change APIs, you can add API mesh in the middle, which allow you to have renaming, transformation, resolvers. If you haven't watched video about the API mesh, it is on my channel. Go and find it. It's quite interesting, I hope. And yeah. And the another option, which is used, I guess, still very, very often, is just a monolith. So you have your Adobe Commerce application, you build in one big module which doing everything, and sending the webhooks and doing transformation and receiving data and pulling data and overload your index and overload your performance and do a lot of other stuff which you sometimes don't want to do. You definitely can do it perfectly. I know you're doing it definitely perfectly. That's only about others, but still consider to use a builder in different cases if you think it's worth it. I think it's worth it. Yeah, that's it. I hope I answered the question and gave the general overview. For me, it was a bit complicated to came to this like one idea, because all those parts of all this architecture I already discussed before and have videos on them. They just split into small parts, and you need somehow to build now this all together by using the builder, by using the API mesh, by using the webhooks, events, and so on. But in this case, it's showing the one picture of the very basic flow. And if you have any other questions, please drop them to me. You see, it works quite good for now that the people drop in a question, and I'm making a video out of them. Hope you enjoy them. And one point I want to mention, some time ago, I opened the Buy Me a Coffee account, and I will be really happy if you support me for getting better content, another content, or generally getting some content, because coffee is an essential part of my life now, and I definitely needed to have the stable source of it in the nearest future. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.